It has been a hectic month for city officials working around the clock on the upcoming municipal elections. The province's sudden cuts to council weighing heavy on staff. Less than a month ago, the city clerk expressing that a fair election could be virtually impossible, while today she provided an update on where things stand. A mad scramble for city staff and volunteers who have been working 12 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week since Doug Ford's slashes to city council were made official.
It's been rather exhausting.
Less than a month ago, City Clerk Yulie Watkis warned all the uncertainties and abrupt changes could be a democratic disaster. But with just 3 weeks to go until the elections, a far different tone today.
Despite the uncertainty over the 25 or 47 or 25 or 47 wards in the last few months, I am now confident that we are going to be ready to go with the opening of advance vote next week.
We did a blow-up ballot to give you a sense of what it will look like.
The city showing off redesigned ballots and giving a tour of the voting equipment in a media briefing this morning.
This is our tabulator machine.
Confident these elections will run smoothly, but not without some sacrifices. The city was forced to reduce advance vote dates because ballots weren't ready in time. And some candidates are concerned because they say on top of that, there aren't enough advance voting stations to accommodate all their constituents.
I've met with so many residents who actually are really concerned about voting because of an accessibility issue. You know, it's so far away from where they live, and we're talking about a huge population.
The boundaries for the new wards were established using the provincial ridings, which each had 4 to 5 advance polling stations.
Okay, my friends, where are we going?
We're going to go to 22 today in St. Jamestown.
St. Jamestown?
Yeah.
Waleed Kogali is running in Toronto Centre and says with the size of the ward almost doubling, 2 advanced polling locations just isn't enough.
It's a disadvantage for folks living in our communities who actually want to get involved in the political process. This is ridiculous. We need to make sure that we meet the accessibility needs of our neighbors, of folks who actually just cannot travel almost half a city, right, to vote.
There was one other consequence, money. The cost of switching from a 47-ward model to a 25-ward model was in the millions. Coming up, I will tell you exactly how much that was and whether or not the province is planning on covering any of the cost. Despite all the chaos and uncertainties of cutting City Council almost in half, city staff tell us today they are ready to go for a fair election. But getting here wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't cheap. In fact, the city is estimating that making the switch from a 47-ward model to a 25-ward model will cost an estimated $2.5 million.
A lot of our costs did relate to overtime. Overtime for both election staff, our information technology and technology staff, our vendors. We did have to consolidate some of our time frames with vendors, which did have a cost impact, and of course printing 2 sets of VIX. So I feel fairly confident that 2.5 is still a fairly good estimate, but we're not through the election yet, and we'll see once we do the tally at the end of the year.
The city tells us at this point they have not discussed whether or not the province will cover some of those extra costs. They estimate the municipal election would have originally cost somewhere between $11 and $12 million. As the deputy clerk mentioned, overtime was a huge cost contributing to that additional $2.5 million. Officials tell us staff have been working 12 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week to make this work. The city also had to print 2 sets of voter information cards to accommodate both ward scenarios, among other things. With advance voting less than a week away, the city is still working around the clock.
And every election has little twists and turns. This one was certainly more interesting than most because we had that dreadful uncertainty for a long period of time. And I again have to say, my very professional, brilliant staff advised all the way through. They pulled it off. They've been amazing.
Advance voting begins in less than a week and runs from October 10th to October 14th. The city estimates it will hire or recruit and train about 18,000 people to cover Election Day as well as advance